The Ghost of David Johnson. Sierra Nevada Mountains, 1880. Deep in the snowflake woods, gray skies are seen above. Heavy panting and running are in focus and can be seen and heard. A woman with ripped blood-stained clothing is running for her life, screaming at the top of her lungs. As her attacker is getting closer to her, she quickly turns her head back to see where he is. Then suddenly, he is in front of her. She stops and realizes it's over for her. The attacker cracks a creepy, sinister smile, and with his bloody, rusted machete, he aims at her. She screams, then he kills her. At that same time, in the distance, a flock of birds fly up into the sky. Days later, in the misty morning, an elderly man and his dog wander through the deep woods. The dog smells something on the ground. The man looks down a few feet away and sees a dismembered, chopped-up body with flies all over it. Feeling sick, he vomits. Passing through David's cabin and into his basement, he is sitting in his chair, sewing something. Then, over his shoulder, you can see he's using human flesh to bind a book. Bones and flesh and heads lay on the floor. A dog is seen licking the blood off the bodies. Months later, two young lovers engaging in a sexual act are seen in the woods. The male stops and turns his head as he hears something. He whispers to the girl, "Did you hear that? Sounds like someone's out there." She looks at him and says, "I don't hear anything." Now, the sound of footsteps can be heard again, but louder. The man says, "Someone's out there, I tell you." Hello? Hello? Who's there? "I don't hear anything. The woods are old. It's nothing, my love." He looks at her and says, Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just imagining things." They slowly go back to what they are doing. David is now behind the tree, watching the couple having sex. David is now standing in front of them with a long machete in his hand. Matthew opens his eyes for a moment and sees David standing in front of him. Matthew and his girl look up at David, scared. David grins and says, "Hello, lovers." Then he kills them both. These kinds of killings continue on for years, until one fateful afternoon when David's judgment day had arrived. A young pretty girl is seen picking lilies in the woods. David slowly approaches her. He looks up at her and says, "What is such a lovely girl like yourself doing in these parts of the woods, dear?" She replies with an innocent smile, "I'm picking flowers from my daddy's grave." David responds, "What a kind and considerate thing to do for your daddy, my darling." He gets closer to her and starts touching her hair. She is now frightened. His hand is now covering her mouth. Then he slowly pulls out a long knife and says, "Shh, my child, it's time for you to die." He places a knife to her throat. As soon as this happens, her uncle catches this happening and yells out loud, "Hey, you!" His rifle is now pointed directly at David. David lowers his weapon, smiles, and bolts off running. The uncle chases after David. David is running in between the trees. The bullets are hitting the trees and not David. The uncle, tired, stops running. "I'm gonna get you, you son of a bitch!" David laughs and runs away. The uncle returns back to where his niece is at. She assures him she is okay. He puts his hand on her shoulder, giving her a sense of comfort. Then he notices she is looking down at something on the ground. He kneels down and picks up a ring covered in blood. He wipes the ring off and sees an inscription inside of it, reading, To my beloved David, love, Anne. He gets back up and puts the ring in his pocket. He then says to her, "We need to go and report this right now. We can't be having these kind of things happening again." Both of them are sitting in the sheriff's station, explaining what had just occurred and what the man looked like. Then the uncle reaches into his pocket and says, "Oh, I forgot to give this to you. I think this will explain things even more better, Sheriff." The sheriff looks at the inscription inside the ring. Then he turns to his fellow deputies. "Boys, I think we found our killer. He's the only David that fits that description. Time to saddle up, get the horses. We got a killer to catch." The sheriff and his men have reached the compound of David's cabin. Night has fallen, and a full moon emerges out of the sky. Fog floats around, and wolves can be heard howling in the distance. The men spread out, looking at David's eerie-looking compound. Fire torches are now lit up. Bizarre objects of animal skulls are on wood staffs, and weird baby dolls are tied on tree branches everywhere. One of the men blurts out, "This is some fucked up shit, man." They get closer to the steps of the cabin. Cats run loose everywhere. Their yellow eyes light up in the darkness. You can hear them growling. The cabin inside is slightly lit up. David's shadow passes by the window. He knows he has visitors. They slowly walk up to the creaking steps to the front door. The sheriff pounds on the door and says, "David, this is Sheriff Daniels. We need you to come out right now." There is no response from David. The sheriff again pounds on the door, and still no response. The sheriff yells out, "If you don't come out now, we're going to drag you out. You hear, boy?" David does not come to the door, so they kick it down and walk inside. Their guns are raised high. Inside, smells of death. Candles are lit everywhere. The place is messy and dark. Old family pictures line the wall. The sheriff advises the men to split up into sections. The sheriff heads down to the basement. What the sheriff now sees is shocking. Tables are full of blood, body parts, and satanic materials are scattered throughout the room. The sheriff calls out to the boys. They all head down the stairs and into the basement, except for one of them, who David creeps up on, grabs him, and cuts his head off. They are all shocked at what they see. One of the men blurts out, "What the hell is this?" Then, up top of the stairs is David. "Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for dropping by on this wonderful rare occasion. First and foremost, you won't be seeing the next day of light any longer. And you're all gonna die very shortly. Oh, and lastly, I forgot. Here's a little gift for you from the bottom of my heart." David throws the head down the stairs. And then the door slams shut and gets locked. David lets out a laugh, then walks away. The sheriff looks at everyone and says, "We gotta get the hell out of here. Catch this son of a bitch once for all. Do you understand, boys?" They all shake their heads and agree. They all head up. Their guns are pointed towards the door. One of them shoots at the door, and they all exit. "Where the hell is this madman hiding?" says the sheriff. They look in every dark room in the cabin, but there is no sign of him. Then, suddenly, David speaks out. "Oh, you didn't like your cozy little room downstairs, huh, guys? What a pity." They try to trace down where the voice is coming from. David is watching them. Then David says, "Oh my, you're getting warmer. Warmer? Ah, now you're getting colder and colder. Can't you find me? Catch me if you can." David heads out the front door and runs outside. They all quickly run after him. They search and search till the sheriff finds David hiding in a barn shed. The sheriff sticks the rifle at David's face and says, "Don't you fucking move, you understand, boy?" David smiles and puts his hands up and says, "Oops, looks like you've got me, Sheriff." The sheriff pulls David out and shouts out to the boys, "I got him! I got the son of a bitch!" The sheriff throws him to the ground. One of the boys punches him in the face, and the sheriff says, "Pick him up, tie him down. Let's get the hell out of here, boys." Days later, while David sits behind bars awaiting a hanging, after being accused of massive killings, the sheriff walks up to the prison bars and talks to David. "You know, you're going to hang for this, boy." David looks up at the sheriff with a grin. "I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it, actually." Several days later, David walks past a crowd of people, waiting to watch him be executed. He walks up the stairs and stands below the hanging rope. Then it is placed around his neck and tightened. People are shouting out loud, "Kill him! Kill that murdering son of a bitch!" A person standing next to him speaks to David. "You got any last words, boy?" David, looking at everyone, says, "I love you all." Then he drops to his death. Sierra Nevada mountains. A group of gothic-looking teens are seen inside of a late 1950s beat-up old Cadillac hearse. They are drinking, smoking, blasting rock music. They park their car near a hiking trail surrounded by beautiful trees, mountains, and wildlife. They all get out of the car and start walking until they stumble upon an old burned-down log cabin up upon a hill. Jessica says, "Wow, look up there, guys." They all look up. "That place looks rad. Let's go." They all walk up the spiral hiking trail. They reach the top and wander around the front next to the cabin. Everything is stripped or taken out of the cabin. A strong wind passes by Jessica, along with the sound of eerie-sounding whispers. Scared, she says to everyone, "There's evil here. Something, I believe, isn't right. I think we really should go now." Mark replies to Jessica, "Come on, for real?" Jessica looks at Mark and replies, "I'm serious. Let's go. This place ain't right." Then they head down the trail. While heading down, Mark trips over an object slightly sticking out of the ground, and then he looks down at it. The others circle around him and say, "What is it?" Mark replies, "I don't know. Let me pull it out and see." Slowly, he pulls it out, and it is a strange book or journal. Mark glides his fingers over the book, then blows the dust off. Lauren says, "Is this book bounded in human flesh?" Mark replies, "Looks like it." Lauren replies, "That's fucking cool, man." He opens the book, but just for a second. Jessica says, "Can you, read that when we get out of this area, please?" Mark replies, Okay, I'm sorry, chill." He puts the book away in his backpack and continues walking with Alan, Cynthia, Carl, and Lauren. Dusk is upon them. They walk through the creepy woods. Strange sounds can be heard, and a deer pops out of nowhere and scares Cynthia. She says, "Shit! You fucking scared the hell out of me." At that same time, Carl stumbles upon an old cemetery. Carl says, "Hey guys, over here. Check it out, man. It's an old boneyard." Cynthia smiles and says, "Oh, yes, awesome. I love cemeteries. Best place to have sex, too. Who's got the booze, by the way?" Alan points to his whiskey bottle. Mark pulls out his small boombox radio. Alan passes the bottle over to the girls, and Jessica takes a swig of it. Then, Alan pulls out a huge joint and lights it up, takes a few deep hits, then passes it around. As they sit around the cemetery, some of them float around, looking at the tombstones. Mark, to open the book he found, so he does. Mark slowly turns the pages. He can feel the strange energy as he touches the pages and words. Mark then reads out loud. In David Johnson's journal, it discusses that David was born in Kent, England in 1840, and that he was contracted to work in California in the bookkeeping department for a railroad company in 1868. It also mentions here that he fell in love with a Miss Anne Richardson, who was born in Dublin, Ireland. Later, they were married and had 2 children and lived a happy life until one day his entire family was mysteriously killed. David goes on and writes, in quotes, "Since the death of my family, life has no meaning anymore. They were my air. They were my life. They were my love. And they were my all." David became a recluse and went mentally insane. He started studying black magic and later went on a killing spree for years. It was like he was almost seeking revenge for the loss of his wife and children. Mark stops reading and says, "Wow, this is some heavy shit. This guy was really messed up. I kind of feel sorry for him and his family, but the killings, that's different." Mark closes the book and takes a swig of Jack Daniels. Cynthia turns up the music. Everyone slowly starts getting into the groove of things. Suddenly, Alan comes across 4 graves that read Anne, Judith, Henry, and a broken headstone that reads David Johnson. "Hey guys, look at this," says Alan. They walk over, and Jessica looks down and says, "Well, well, well, look at what we got here. It's good old David Johnson and his loving family side by side. Says here she and her children all died in 1876. Jessica looks deep at the headstone of Anne, and like in a trance, she places her hand on the headstone. She closes her eyes, and it all comes into view. The sadness, the happiness, and the aftermath of the killings, until she is startled by the sound of an owl sitting on top of a tree. She takes her hand off the tombstone. Jessica says, "Wow." Cynthia looks at Jessica and says, "Are you okay? Looks like you saw a ghost or something." Jessica replies, "Something like that, but way deeper." Mark tells the girls, "I found some wood. Let's all warm up by the fire." The girls walk over and sit down next to him. Everyone is having a good time by the campfire. Cynthia and Carl are making out. The others are drinking and chilling. Then, out of nowhere, Jessica blurts out, "Hey, why don't we invoke the spirit of David Johnson? What do you think, guys?" Carl responds, "Oh, hell no. That's fucking dangerous." The others blurt out, "Come on, Carl, don't be such a pussy. This'll be fun. Nothing's gonna happen anyway." Carl replies, "Whatever then." They all gather around his grave. Jessica pulls out some candles from her backpack. Mark looks at Jessica and says, You, normally carry candles around with you like this?" Jessica responds, "You never know when you just may need them." She then places them in front of the gravestone. Everyone participates lighting the candles and burning the paper with information on it. Then Jessica begins the ritual and speaks the words. The others join in and chant with her. "May this candle represent thee as I place this desire in the flame. Shall my need be seen? Fulfill my need as quick as can be. Bring upon us David Johnson, quick as can be. By the power of thee, bring him to me, so mote it be. They all stand there for a moment, and one by one they walk away and sit back down. Jessica says, "It's just a matter of time. Wait and see. And he will be here soon." Shortly afterwards, things start to get knocked down. The radio has only white noise. Then a strange voice is heard. Death, death. Everyone is scared. Lauren says, "I think it was a bad idea to do this. Not too smart of us at all." Jessica says, "David, is that you? Speak to me." Then David speaks out. "Death, death, death upon you all." His voice stops. The radio turns back on and startles everyone.
Listen to me, honey dear. It's getting harder to please you.
Then, in 1 second, Cynthia is dragged away deep into the woods at a lightning speed, screaming. Then, the screaming stops. Mark yells out, "Let's get the fuck out of here!" Jessica yells out, "What about Cynthia? We can't just leave her out here to die. We gotta go find her, guys." Mark is in a panic mode, and so are the others. Carl replies, Okay, let's just hurry up and let's go." They run through the woods as quickly as they can, and luckily, Mark has one flashlight. Then they reach the area. A long blood trail is seen. Then we see Cynthia completely slaughtered. The other girls are freaked out and scream. Everyone starts running. David's haunting laugh is heard. But David cannot be seen. One by one, he begins brutally killing them. Mark gets cornered, and David's spirit can now be seen. Mark pleads for his life. "Please, please don't kill me." Now, there is only Lauren, Carl, and Jessica alive. They quickly try to hide. Jessica tells Lauren and Carl to be quiet. We then hear strange, creepy sounds. Then David grabs and drags Lauren away, who is screaming for her life. Jessica starts running with Carl, but Carl gets snatched up and killed. All Jessica can do now is run for her life. Jessica runs and runs until she gets to the main road. She waves and waves at several cars, but they just pass her by, until luckily a pickup truck stops. She opens the door and gets in. The truck drives away. She says, "Thank you so much." The man's shadowy face comes into focus. "You're quite welcome," in an English accent. Is it David or not David? That is the question. The Ghost of David Johnson, written by Giovanni Sticco, copyright 2020, Writers Guild of America West, narrated by Giovanni Sticco.